as you all know. Okay, we're going to get started. We're going to get started straight away because that's what we do on these webinars. And very warm welcome to our 56th Security Thought Leadership webinar. And normally we go out on a Tuesday and Thursday at the later time, but we're going out earlier today because of events going on elsewhere in the world. There's a lot of events today and this week. And this is a topic today that has been on the card for a long, long time. And don't forget, the idea of thought leadership is that we critique today for a better type of security tomorrow. That's the idea of thought leadership. And 56th webinar today, and we're talking about the role of security in Scandinavia. What are the implications for security in the new normal? And let me tell you why this has come about. On previous webinars, we've been hearing about Scandinavia. We've been hearing on the one hand that Sweden made a real mess of it and now are a shining example of how you do it. And the question is, what about those closest to Sweden, Norway and Finland? How have they been getting on? Have they been copying? Have they been doing differently? And what can we learn about security? As always, I've got an elite esteemed panel from those three countries. So what I'm going to do first and foremost is invite them to introduce themselves. And when they've each done that, I'll ask them to make their opening statement. And once they've made their opening statement, then we're going to go into questions and answers. Quite a lot of questions come through to me already, but if you would like to ask a question, please use the question and answer button at the bottom of your screen, and I will endeavour to get to it. So ask the questions early, and we'll try and get a discussion going on those points. So without further ado, let me ask my panel to introduce themselves, and we're going to go to Norway first, and Øyvind.
Hi. It's Evian Holmes from Norway as a communication manager in Stanley Security. I've been 34 years in the security industry. I've been 10 years in what we call Norwegian Society of Safety and Security. 5 years as a president and 5 years as a vice president. So that's my background in Norway.
Øyvind, thank you very much indeed. And from Norway, we'll go to Finland and Totti.
Hello, hello. Greetings to everybody, and thank you, Martin, for inviting me into this webinar. A short background, 20 years in law enforcement. My specialty is the behavioral perspective of security and prevention of crime, based in Helsinki and Hong Kong, and that's it in brief.
Totti, thank you very much indeed. And from Finland, over to Sweden and Peter.
Hello everyone, thanks for inviting me as well. I'm head of security at Scandic hotels, and I've been in the security business since 1989 and have had various head of security positions during this time.
Thank you very much indeed. Well, all of you, many people write to me from around the world, and they say to me one of the great things about these webinars is we get a great panel. And so once again, we've done that. I'm very much looking forward to hearing their views. So we'll now go to each of our panelists and ask them for their opening statement, 3 minutes, where we get their views on what's been going on in their country. Øyvind, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, thanks for participating here, and it's forced me to think through these issues, and that's a lot of good things come out of that, I think. Shortly for Norway, closing down 12th of March. They invented immediately new laws. They closed down, let's see, small shops, everything that we have face-to-face or close services to people. They closed down schools. So that's and the politicians stood side by side by the health authority. So actually, the prime minister was the main person here. Life and was the big first priority to save lives. So far, 267 dead people. We have about population in Norway 5.5 million. 13,000 are confirmed infected, and the number of infected are increasing in Norway, but not the number of deaths. That's a positive thing. We actually for the whole period of time, the number of deaths was reduced with 45%. So the funeral bureaus had less to do because we prevent other infections as well. So that's a little strange thing. Less criminals passing the borders because we closed the borders. we slightly reopened the society in the end of April, and from there we have some local infections that we had to handle. So and of course this had a huge impact on the economy, yeah, and that's a real task actually. From a security perspective, working with security as a security manager and helping the security managers, 95% of the work is the safety issues, and 5% security issues in this period. That's a strange thing. We have and fear actually have become the largest threat, and it's not so easy to control because we have to do with people. So and I have a lot of issues, but I think that's and of course security empty premises and empty offices, that has been a task as well. So that's yeah, that's the perspective from Norway actually. So yeah.
Øyvind, thank you very much indeed, really helpful, yeah. And plenty of stuff to come back onto you in a minute. Let's move over to Totti in Finland then and get your opening statement, please, Totti.
Yes, thank you. At the moment, Finland hasn't been hit too bad by the actual virus, but as Øyvind said, I think the biggest issue now is the impact of fear and how it impacts the decision-making, communication, and people's behavior in general. We have limitations to social gatherings, restaurants, events, and travel. We are waiting for the second wave. But the issues that I've noticed recently during this pandemic is lack of consistency in government branches and their communication. We have seen a tremendous need for personal and organizational resilience, how to deal with this current situation, how people have been dealing with the loss of control. And it's not all doom and gloom, so it's both positive and negative reactions. And the importance of crisis communication, which I think many organizations, including our government, is still doing baby steps. They're still learning. But fear is the biggest issue at the moment. So I agree with Øyvind.
Thank you very much indeed, Totti. So over to Peter in Sweden. Peter, your opening thoughts, please.
I can only agree to the previous two speakers here that fear is something that you cannot really put the finger on how it's going to impact business or personal way of life and living. And we've had a tough spring with a lot of deceased, and our healthcare has been on their knees basically. But our schools has been opened, primary schools, secondary schools, some universities, and has gotten the opportunity to stay at home and have classes from home. And that's a way of keeping the society going. And we can also see that it's kind of difficult to keep the society going if restaurants are closed. There are restraints about how many people you can have at the same place, which is obvious, but it's not obvious for the common people, the lay people. I think we have the greatest challenge in this COVID-19 is that maybe not all of us understand the severeness or the impact it's when it's so easy to spread the disease to the next person. However, it's also important to be a part of not closing down the society. If you normally go to a restaurant and eat at the restaurant, maybe you should take a takeaway just to support the local restaurant or the local store so that they can keep on going. Because what we're seeing where I live, I work in Stockholm, but I live 100 kilometers from Stockholm. But it's a sad view to see small restaurants are closing, limited open hours, nobody on the streets. So the fear obviously has had an impact. It's not all bad, but it's somewhat good also, because I think from my personal perspective that we have never been so clean on our hands as we are today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much indeed. Well, let's start to examine this in a bit of detail. Just to say to the audience, if you want to ask a question, question and answer button at the bottom of your screen. And if you do want to get it in over, I've got some questions here. First one, let me go to you, Peter. We were talking just before we came live on air about the fact that Sweden has attracted a lot of attention around the world. Initially because it was seen not to take it seriously, more latterly because you've kept things going when others are closed down and your economy hasn't been hit as bad. How do you feel that has been received by the Swedish people now? What's the state of things in Sweden? Is that seen to have been a good place to be?
I think so, yes. Of course, we have it's quite difficult. We have our own Anders Tegnell, who is had a press conference at 2 o'clock every day for the last 4, 5, 6 months, and that's been it's almost been that's the place to be, to see what's the latest news, how many deaths, where are the country going as we speak. But I think it's hard to say that you have an answer, but I think that the strategy from our government and from our health authorities, as seen today, were the proper one. Because if you close down a school, you have to have, if you have 2 parents and all of your kids have to be at home, you also have to stay at home, so you're not productive. And it's a two-way. I really believe that they made the right decision when saying that we are going to keep our schools open, because that's the thing to keep us moving and not slowing down as much as our colleagues in the other countries.
Well, certainly you got there before the UK. That's now being seen as the big issue, but it's come rather later. Let me go to Øyvind in Norway. Norway, I'm just interested. I want to set the context here for people outside Scandinavia. Øyvind, what's been the reaction of Norway to the way Sweden's been responding to the virus? There's a lot of people interested in this, Øyvind, by the way.
I think in the start there was a lot of criticism the way that the Swedish handled it, because the number of deaths was rising, and we have a very low number in Norway. But as the time has been going, I think this is seen in another perspective. It's more and more important to keep the business going. And there's a huge and a very difficult question here, and that's acceptance criteria for a number of deaths in this kind of scenario. And you won't get the politicians to talk about the acceptance criteria for death, because they won't be re-elected next time. So that's a hard question, but I think that's really something that needs to be discussed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because you need to have the business running. But we have fortunes, and the government pushed in a lot of money to the different businesses, so they struggle. But I mean, our oil fund is not not lasting forever. So we need to keep the business going. So I think the criticism to Sweden have reduced, and people start to see it's important to keep running the society actually.
Yeah, I think that's where we are in the UK, out of interest. Totti, I want to ask you the same point, because as a local neighbour, same question really. It's a context-setting question before we get on to security ones. Totti, what has the reaction been in Finland to the way that Sweden has approached this? Initially sceptical and now more positive, or different?
Well, I need to emphasize that we keep on joking about the Finland and Sweden and not being the best of friends, but this unfortunately does add fuel to the flames regarding the bias that we might have towards Sweden. The economy side and entrepreneurial side is more supporting the Sweden's approach, because as said, it keeps the wheels running. However, coming back to the fear issue, Finns have been rather negative about, because we have the ferry traffic. between Finland and Sweden, and in the northern border, of course, we have a very large borderline with Sweden as well. So I'd say we're more on the negative side on looking at how Sweden has handled, but the business side is definitely more supportive on how to manage this the Swedish way.
Okay, thank you. Now let's get to some security questions now. And of course, Jamie Williamson has got a question, which actually was on my list of questions sent in advance. I'm going to ask it to all of you. And it's essentially this one. How have security companies, security organizations, security personnel adapted to the crisis? Now, Øyvind, I'm going to come to you first because you made the point. There's been a shift from security to safety during this crisis. It begs two direct questions for me, Øyvind. First is, what have safety professionals been saying about that? Isn't that their domain? And the second question is it going to last beyond the crisis? Øyvind first.
Yeah, okay. This security, these safety issues have been in with cooperation with the HSE manager in the company. But I think the HSI manager had really good help from the security manager, because the security manager have a better operational experience actually. So for putting out measures and that kind of stuff regarding the safety issue and not be infected. So this have been a cooperation, but I think HSI managers have very good help from security manager in this matter, because it's very much operational tasks and measures that you need to take to put in place.
Øyvind, in other countries, right, on this issue, in previous webinars, the issue's been made is that actually the real gainers from this, in a professional standing point of view, is not security, it's safety professionals. And that they're the ones who have really gained. And in fact, security has been quite marginal in the great scheme of things. Has that been the case in Norway?
As I mentioned before, 95% of the time it's safety issues, and as a security manager, you need to take care of the premises, and because they are more or less empty, so you need to secure them better. But now we are going over to a new way of working, and maybe 50–60% people are staying at home and work, and that's quite another security issue, because inside the premises and the business it's easy to take control of the security matters. But when people are working home, that's quite another task actually. So that's a lot of issues having people working at home.
Okay, Øyvind, let me come to you.
Can I just
Totti,
jump in?
yeah, absolutely, yes, I'm coming to you next, Totti, anyway. You carry on.
Okay, because I do agree that the health and safety professionals are the big role, but definitely security professionals when it comes to cybersecurity, for the reasons what Øyvind just said. People are working from home, and the layman's security awareness or willingness to follow, for example, online security procedures might not be as good and as easily controlled when you're working from home. So I definitely would put also cybersecurity professionals on a major role during this crisis.
But where does that leave, Totti, physical security professionals? Because once again, and I'm just going over this point really, I'm just trying to drive our understanding of where we are on this issue. Because there is this sense around the world at the start of this crisis, this was good for security. We're out there and we're dealing with this on the front line. And yet the more we begin to talk about it, I mean, Øyvind mentioned safety, you mentioned cyber. That's not the core job of most security companies and corporate security professionals. Totti.
Yeah, I do believe that there are two specific roles for what we would label perhaps as traditional security. One is keeping up the fort. So we still have the premises, facilities that need to be protected. And it's going to be interesting to see what type of crimes have taken place when we actually start to return to work. Has it been the theft of your personal property at the workplace, or something else? And another thing that not many organizations are ready yet, after the 2003 SARS epidemic in Hong Kong, we saw what we call revenge spending. So in psychology, I would say that's the euphoria of survival. So if you're faced with trauma or fear and then you survive, then nothing matters. So I'm going to spend money on excessive dinners, or I'm going to buy the car I always dreamt about, or I'm going to travel to Bali, whatever. And in the end, that's going to come back with embezzlements or frauds or even theft targeting the companies. So definitely there is a big role for security. That's my 2 cents worth.
And the thing is, Totti, we won't find that out till later. Okay, Peter, same question for you. I want to know about how, this is Jamie Williamson's questions, about how security has fared in Sweden. Would you say, Peter, that Sweden has, the security sector in Sweden, thinking generally for a moment, has come out well in terms of perception of its performance? Peter?
Most likely, yes. What we can see is that some security companies has starting offering services that they normally are not offering companies like us. And also, of course, that's because there is a demand for, I mean, we are running 280 something hotels in Europe, and just because we have had to lay off a lot of good and qualified people, we still have to have a fire alarm that's working, a sprinkler system that's working, and we have the controls that are made out by law. And if we don't have that competence within the house, so to speak, locally, we need to buy that competence from somebody else who has that competence. So it's sort of a, we prefer it to have the competence in-house, but as the world are right now, and we have had to lay off a lot of people, we need to buy competence from somebody else. So I think in general for the Swedish security business, I think actually it has increased the number of different services that they are offering, and the way that they are offering these kind of services to the other companies. Because we are in a state that we are having business as usual, even though the business are very, very, very slow. But we need to keep our hotels open. We need to keep our restaurants open in order to get the bigger picture running. And therefore, the security industry, I think, maybe not so much safety related, but security related. If we are not in the workplace, somebody else has to be at the workplace, making sure that everything is working, security-wise.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. We're going to return to this, I think, in the context of various other issues that I want to cover. Jason Brown has got one. I'm going to come to Øyvind first. And he's talking about the role of the private security sector, Øyvind. And just to get a sense now, Jason's question is, what has been the role in lockdown? For example, in Australia and elsewhere in the world, we've seen different types of roles taking place, temperature checking, staffing queues. We've seen, and this cropped up on the one in Eastern Europe we did on Tuesday, we've seen within corporations a real awareness about major gaps in, for example, contingency plans and emergency management. From your point of view, has there been a changing role in security beyond turning to safety, which is going to be long-lasting in Norway, beyond the crisis, Øyvind?
I haven't seen so much of that so far. We have been fortunate, and we are delivering, security solutions to the market, and that's the way to go forward to have efficient solutions and keep it on the budget and a good security for the money actually. So we of course we focus on new services to our customers, but we have of course have impact on less turnover in this period of time, but the business are most of all running as it is, so we haven't noticed so much difference in the way of working, but that's maybe the business we are in. We are only in the security solutions, electronics in Norway.
Have you seen an uptake in electronic solutions because of the crisis, or the reverse way round, Øyvind, a reduction in commitment because of the economic hardship?
We have seen some extra services and deliveries for special offices that are empty in the first period of time. In the first 3 months, a lot of premises was empty, and there a lot of security managers secured up the premises because it was empty 24 hours. So so we had some extra deliveries during that period of time. So yeah.
But you're not expecting there to be either a particular uptake or a particular negative as a result of the crisis. Where you are right now, Øyvind, there's no sort of major worry or hope that it's going to be a lot better. It's business as usual by and large.
Yeah, almost for us, because we have only business to business. We don't work in the private sector. So far it's close to normal. Of course, we have an impact, but close to normal, I would say.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Totti, let me come to you. And Jason's question is about how the private security sector has performed. Have you sensed there has been any change in role or dynamic about the role it's played during the crisis so far, and whether there will be any continuation of that going forward? Totti from Finland.
Yes, I think that's a really good question as a phenomenon, but also from a business perspective, because I haven't seen the Finnish security companies taking as active role as what they could have done, and I'm only looking at the Finnish mentality, and I think Finns are very law-abiding per se, so the need for more stringent, more strict security services is not perhaps needed as much. And then also the role of security in Finland is more, it's not as enforcement oriented as it is service oriented. So for example, I haven't come across in any social media or media publications about conflicts related to the use of masks, or people not being allowed to enter a facility because they don't have a mask. So it's not been on the ground level security. It hasn't really, I haven't seen any change, or very little.
Interesting. That's two of you are saying similar things. Really interesting. Peter, what's the situation in Sweden?
I would say pretty much as it was before. I cannot say that we see a lot of more of personal security companies on the streets or in the entrance of restaurants or nightclubs or wherever. Actually, there are not specifically any more controls wearing masks if recommended. Here in Sweden, so far we don't have it as a demand. It's more of a recommendation when you're going in public transportations and so on. But I think more when you see a security guard on the streets, they are acting and doing what they always have done. It's giving service, and not so much pointing out that you're not wearing your mask properly and whatnot. What I personally see is that we have had an increase of smaller security companies wanting to sell us this and that based on fear. You need to have this, you need to have this, you need to have that kind of protection, you need to have plexiglass, you need to have, and it's not a challenge, but it's not so easy to handle all the new security safety companies who put fear as a selling point to the general public. And we have of course at all of our hotels we do have plastic gloves and masks and whatnot and sanitation devices, but we believe in the actions that we are taking, that's good enough, and we are of course following the national health authorities recommendation as well. So to go beyond that is accepting the fear.
Okay. Yeah, I understand. Thank you. I mean, I have to say, this is fascinating for me. I've had this is the 56th webinar today, as I was saying. And up to now, we've been hearing so much about the fact that it's been a dramatic change, a dramatic opportunity for security. The world's going to be different afterwards. And so we're getting a very different viewpoint here. I guess that might apply to Conrad Weinert's question, but let me just put it to you, please, if I might. And I'll start with you, Øyvind, again. Presumably, because things haven't changed so much, some of the problems we've seen around the world, and we did one on India, which is horrific, and the United States as well, actually, where numbers of staff are being lost on a massive scale through reductions in because of the crisis. Has that been I presume that hasn't been quite the same crisis, Øyvind, in Norway. You haven't suffered that sort of impact.
Yeah, that's probably right. But I think we, after a while, we probably see some changes because, of course, a lot of business in Norway as well. They are hit for COVID-19, and they have to let people go. And of course, when you struggle with income, you cut the cost, and there also the security budget. So we actually in the future we're probably going to see more businesses that cut on the security business to save cost to get the business running. That's the issue, and that will hit our business as well, of course. And other after being invited here, as I'm grateful for, you start thinking, and we start thinking the way tomorrow to work, and probably we have about 50–60% of the people working at home, and that's, as mentioned, that's quite another task for security. And what about the team spirit? Will disappear? Is going to be more difficult to build an efficient safety and security culture where people are sitting home? What about securing sensitive information documents when you're working home? I was dropping, also listening from the flat beside what you are saying and doing. What about the robbery and threatening situations? A criminal can easily take control of your PC when you are home and get access to all the company's applications, security, IT-wise. What about the tiger kidnapping for management and so on? So it's a lot of tasks and issues that we don't have to start thinking about for the new way to working tomorrow, actually.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting point, that, because I guess that does represent a major change. And perhaps picking up on Totti's point earlier, we've yet to see what the implications of all this are. I mean, this is ongoing and it's happened so fast. I mean, is this a big opportunity for the Norwegian security sector?
Yeah, of course, and you need to change and adapt to the market. So that's, but I think most of the business are driving the business as usual. But I think the business really need to start to think it over and think about the new tomorrow, how to deliver service that the customers are useful for the customers tomorrow.
Yeah, okay, so let's move to Totti. A really interesting point, Øyvind, thank you. Totti, I mean, this is a point, isn't it? So I get from you the fact that it's been, and I'm going to use my words, not yours, but there's been a lot of business as usual going on. But there is this major change, isn't there, that people are working from home, businesses have been empty. And as you said, the realities about some of the things that are going on haven't been realised yet. How well equipped, Totti, is the security sector for what comes next?
As I mentioned in my opening statement, the need for personal and organizational resilience has become very clear during the past 7 months. And I'm only looking at the security from the problematic behavior perspective, anger management issues and threats and all that. And as an outsider looking at the more traditional security services, I really haven't seen massive changes or the capability to adapt into the new market and perhaps find new market areas on providing either health and safety specialties or cybersecurity or the traditional security. So I think there is a big market there, but I think it was Peter who said that marketing through fear is something that doesn't fit too well in. So
Yeah.
we'll have to see what happens.
Totti, I mean, I guess this point, and of course you are well placed on this. You've got a comparison with Hong Kong. You worked in both areas. Do you see a difference in the way that the response has taken place in Hong Kong to the way it's taken place in Finland? As an outsider, they seem similar in very general terms. We did one on Asia recently, where one of the speakers was from there, painting a picture of quite dynamic, quite a good opportunity for the security sector. Maybe not so much in Scandinavia. Your thoughts, Totti?
Yeah, well, both Finland and Hong Kong are both very law-abiding countries. Well, if we don't count the protests during the last year, but overall we're very law-abiding in both countries. But the cost of security is very different in Asia than what it is in Finland. So you automatically see much more security people. Then.
Totti, which is more expensive? Just for those of us outside those.
Finland, because of the employee costs, is definitely more expensive. But taking one example, in Finland, the use of masks still is relatively unknown. People don't feel comfortable with the masks, and people in Hong Kong and in Southeast Asia are automatically using masks if they have any type of flu symptoms. So I haven't, it's not as easy comparison as you would think, because the number of security personnel in Hong Kong is just way beyond what we have in Finland.
But why is that though? I mean, I'm just trying to get a sense of this. This is nothing to do with COVID. This is anyway. Security is a bigger deal in Hong Kong than in Finland. One issue is the cost in Finland, you're saying, but I was just wondering, it's not obvious to me as an outsider, forgive my ignorance, the threat is greater in Hong Kong, or is it?
The threat is what?
Threat,
I didn't hear you.
well, the security threat for people in Hong Kong. I mean, do they fear crime more, or is it worse there? I'm just trying to get a sense of the dynamic here about why there would be so many more in Asia than there would be in Finland.
Well, Hong Kong is extremely safe city. So I haven't in the past 10 years, I really haven't counted anybody from my friends or professional contacts that people would be overly concerned over their personal safety. But you're just used to seeing security all over. In every city, every house has a lobby security and every parking lot. So security is everywhere because it doesn't cost anything. But then again, most of the people working in the security, they really don't have legal means to actually enforce too much. So it's basically a man or a woman in uniform, and that's it.
Okay, let me move on. I want to get Peter in on this one because I'm very interested in Sweden on this topic. So presumably, Peter, though, from what you've been saying, there's been no dramatic loss of personnel in the security sector. That hasn't been an issue. And so, whichever sector you want to speak about. And is that right?
Yeah.
So from your point of view, because this is a problem that's been cropping up on these webinars galore, Peter. So it's a really fascinating insight from Scandinavia, I have to say. That in fact, to be honest, until today, I hadn't really questioned it. But you've put a different point of view. So would you expect, I think this is behind Comrade Wynant's question, we've got no reason to suppose that it won't be business as usual afterwards. There's no concern, for example, and just if I could summarise for you what's cropped out of previous webinars, during this crisis, security has been able to shine because it's a crisis and security are great at crisis. But what's going to come next is economic hardship. And then it's going to go completely the other way. And all the gains gone that have been accumulated during the crisis will be lost because economic hardship. And just as that security is good in the crisis, it's first to go when there's an economic hardship. Does that apply to Sweden, do you think, Peter, or not?
I'm not sure, actually. The companies who comes to us now are more have a higher level of requests on the facilities, on our staff, the possibility to have their own private areas, as opposed to before, where if you have a large conference hotel, all the guests are mixed sort of together. But I think the good side of this, maybe the security companies will have a decrease in revenue in the next couple of years due to cutting costs within the companies. However, if you play the cards well today, and if you don't aspire on just fear, rather than collaboration between, as we spoke in previous year about HR department, work labor, it's all about also to have a great competence and knowledge within the staff, within your own staff, to handle. This is a situation where none of us has been in before. We have had, for instance, at many of our hotels, we have had guests who are claiming that they have COVID-19 symptoms, and they are calling our staff wondering what to do. And this is something that we have never seen before. This makes us having to be more proactive, more secure the right information to our staff and the right training. So I believe that if there's a security companies are playing their cards well, they will be the next providers for better trainings and education regarding handling of virus or pandemic situations.
Interesting. And I guess that does mirror some of the things we've heard elsewhere. Just a very quick question to Øyvind, because we're running out of time. Øyvind, you run an association, which you said in your opening statement. Øyvind, are you still meeting? Does the association?
Yeah, we are going to using online webinars as you're doing. So that's the new way of meeting. So we have now a webinar 6th of October and 25th of November. So we try to keep the business and the meetings going. We have planned for a security conference in May next year. And we really hope that it's possible to meet people there and not to have a webinar as well. So we really, and I think people are more than ready to meet. I mean, that's the thing, to meet other people. So I think we some way have enough of digital meetings. So I think people are looking forward to meet each other. So
absolutely.
And that's the way of running the business. Of course, then we are having that on the hotel, and we make some money of it, and that's the important thing to keep it as normal as we can. Yeah.
Okay. Listen. Thank you very much, Øyvind. I was going to ask each of you a final question, and if I could ask you to be very brief, 20 seconds each, just a quick summary. Headline issue: what if is going to be the main impact on security going forward from the COVID-19 experience? Totti, you first, please. You're on mute.
So what is going to be the main impact on security
going forward?
As
a consequence of the virus going forward. Just 20 seconds, Totti, please.
Okay, 20 seconds. We have a main plan, backup plan, and an emergency plan. That's standard in security. But have we actually trained our staff on a prolonged security incidents and having the mindset to have the resilience to go on as long as it takes?
Yeah, okay, perfectly understand that one. Peter, your thoughts, the main impact in Sweden from the crisis on security going forward?
I would say increase overall competence. This is knowledge which are not supposed to be only at the security or the safety companies. And this is also to create a resilience that we know that all of us knows more about pandemic situations than we used to.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, thank you. And final comment to you, Øyvind, main impact on security going forward.
I think more safety knowledge, that's one thing. Securing home offices, that's I think another. And of course, trust before fear. That's I think the issue.
Panel, thank you so much. I tell you what, that was a really interesting alternative point of view. And so fantastically interesting and fascinating. So thank you very much indeed for your input. Just a few final points. Thank you. By the way, I'm sorry we couldn't get to all the questions. I know some of you sent them in advance, but that's a good sign, I suppose. Just so that you know, the OSPAs around the world are developing. The entries are open in the UK and in Romania and Germany at the moment. So if you're in those countries and you know someone who's outstanding, do put entry in, please. And just to let you know, the award ceremony for the OSPAs in the United States is taking place on Friday. It's virtual and you can turn up anytime you like. So there's the link. We do it it's going to be taking place at GSX Plus. So it's open from 12:30 Eastern time, free to attend. It's quite a dynamic virtual awards actually. So do get a look at that. And if you're from the Benelux, 24th of November, the Benelux OSPAs will be taking place then. Finally, just to say that we'll be going through all again on Tuesday, where we'll be debating the implications of COVID-19 on the future of security in the Benelux. Where are the opportunities and the traps? Another early one, where we're also going to be talking a little bit about the Benelux OSPAs as well. So please join us at 9 AM next Tuesday, British summertime, for that. Once again, thank you very much indeed to the audience. Thank you so much to the panel for your insight. Absolutely fascinating. In the background, Christine Brooks and Hannah Miller have been helping out, as they always do. Just to say a big thank you to you all, and wherever you are in the world, until we meet again, stay safe.
Cheers.